alongside UMBC head men's basketball coach Ryan Odom, I'm Gary Stein, and welcome in to the UMBC Ryan Odom Basketball Report. It's an exciting time of year, no doubt, for UMBC basketball as the America East Conference tournament has begun. UMBC is the #1 seed. They host UMass Lowell in a semifinal game this Saturday with an eye towards getting back to the NCAA tournament. In a moment, we'll talk with a retriever who's moved into the starting lineup and made a big difference down the stretch for UMBC. And speaking of the tournament, a new book is coming out about UMBC's historic upset over Virginia in the 2018 tournament. We'll talk to the author, Kevin Cowherd, in our next segment. But first, Ryan, welcome in. A big win against Vermont in the season finale gets you that #1 seed. Take us back 2 Fridays ago and what you saw unfold on the court for your team.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here, Gary. Obviously, always a pleasure. And we're coming off a great weekend, historic weekend for UMBC basketball, and really proud of the staff and the guys, for how they performed. I'll take you back to Thursday night. Vermont was lights out. They played extremely well. Offensively, they were on fire, and we had trouble guarding them, quite honestly. And I thought our guys were excellent on offense as well. So it was two teams kind of going back and forth. It was close, down the stretch, 63-61, I think, with about 4 minutes to go. And I felt like our guys, had a chance there, but, Vermont kind of pushed it away at the end and finished the job. And so, coming off of that disappointing ending there, I think our guys were motivated, for that next day. Obviously, we all knew what was at stake in that second game, or even going into the weekend, we knew what was at stake. And that was a share of the conference championship. And I think you saw a more determined effort defensively from our team. I think offensively, we did a nice job, of getting to the free throw line and focusing on trying to score closer to the basket and put a little bit more pressure on them like they did on us in game 1. And, I thought the defense kind of won out in that one. And again, couldn't be prouder, more happy for everybody involved in our program. First regular season championship share since 2008.
So, Coach, it's interesting this year with the games back to back. You don't have a lot of time to ruminate, about the game the night before or the day before, and you really have to prepare for that next one the next day. I'm sure you'd like to tell your team like a bunch of things on what to do, but do you try to do that, or do you focus on maybe 1 or 2 things that they need to do better for that next game?
Yeah, you try not to overload them, without a doubt. You want to make sure that you hammer the key things that either helped you win or kept you from winning. And, one of the things that we always try to do is focus on things that lead to winning. And there's a lot of different things that do lead to winning when you're talking about college basketball. And, we know what those things are for us, as a unit. And so we try to just hammer those home every day. And certain games we are really consistent with it, and other games we're not. And so we have to go back to the drawing board. And, it takes an open mind. It takes a critical mind. It takes one that, you can't be sensitive as a group. After you lose, you have to understand why you lost and try to get back to the drawing board and do it better. And that's the key to any successful college basketball team.
Yeah, Coach, you said you were proud of your group for the way that they came back in that season finale against Vermont. I'm sure you were very, very proud a few days later when no less than 5 of your players were recognized with postseason awards. We can go through the list, as well as yourself for Coach of the Year in the America East Conference. I know you're not in it for the accolades. I'm not saying that. But that must have really given you a very, very proud moment for you and the team to be recognized like that.
Yeah, no question. Start out with Dimitrije, who's going to be on the show with us here today. His award, quite honestly, is what it's all about. It's academic all conference. And obviously that means you have to be not only a really good player, but a really good student as well. And the balance of the two, that's why you're in college. And, he's going to graduate here in May and then pursue his master's after that. And, I'll let you talk to him more about what that will look like for him. But really excited for him. He's earned that. RJ and Brandon getting first team all conference. I mean, that's really hard to do in our conference. We have a lot of good players, and proud of their development since they first came in, and both have become go-to guys for us, this season. Keandre, I think we all felt like, he was the sixth man of the year, going into the season. We felt like he had that ability, his willingness to sacrifice. He plays like a starter, and is a really important piece to our team. And I was really happy for him. And then Darnell, I mean, a guy that's overlooked by his size and does so much on the offensive end, but to be recognized as, one of the top defensive players in our conference, all right, is really, really impressive. And so I'm happy for him, because that was one of the things that he and I talked about, over the summer was, I know what you're going to do on offense, but what are you going to do for us on defense? And, he's more than shown what he's capable of in that category.
Yeah. And Coach, as you say, let's bring in one of those postseason award winners, young man from Serbia who's made UMBC in the Baltimore area his home now for the last 2 years, senior forward Dimitrije Spasojevic. And Dimitrije, first of all, congratulations. How does it feel to get recognized postseason for handling your business, as Coach said, both on and off the court?
Thank you so much, and thank you guys for having me. It really means a lot to me, because I've been focusing on both academics and the athletics as well. And coming from Serbia, where I didn't really have that opportunity to, play for a high school that has both academics and athletics, and to come to the place where that's very common to have, like colleges here are way different from what I'm used to. And to do it for my family name as well, it really means a lot to me.
Coach, I'm going to let you take it over to tell us how you and Dimitrije connected and what he means to you in the program.
Yeah, I mean, he means a ton to us. I mean, every day that he comes in here, he's got tremendous spirit. He cares about winning. He cares about the right things. He's a big brother, to a lot of the guys. He's a leader for our team. I think the first thing that jumps out to me when you first meet Dimitrije is just the maturity level. He's extremely mature, for his age. Obviously, he's been in school for 4 years now and heading into his senior year, at the end of his senior year at this point, even though he gets another year back, which we're excited about. But he has a seriousness about him, but it's not all serious at all times. He has the ability to joke and have fun with his teammates. And I think he's found a new home here, at UMBC. Not to say anything disparaging about where he was before. He made a choice to go to East Carolina, had, two great coaches there. One in particular, Kenny Potosnak, and I worked together, at Furman University. And, Kenny, had glowing things to say about Meech when he decided to make a move and decide on another school. And so that connection was the initial connection between the two. And, I think the more I began to talk to Dimitrije, it was evident, all right, this guy is one of us. Like, he's going to do really well here. And I think he's hit it off. Tell me what your thoughts are, Meech, since you first arrived here on campus. What'd you find?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I met the guys, I felt that family type of environment, and the way that people embrace me. For example, like KJ from last year, he was the first one to reach out, and he's like, let's go for dinner, let's hang out. And I really loved that. And like you said, it was a perfect fit for me. It was a no-brainer when the opportunity came by.
Meech, I wanted to ask you, and Coach kind of alluded to it a minute ago, it seems to me like you're the type of guy that basketball is a part of your life. It's an important part of your life, there's no doubt, but you have other important things going on in your life also. So talk a little bit just about what your goals are, what your ambitions are in terms of after basketball, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a great question. Definitely, when you're a senior, you start thinking about that, and you realize how real that, that feeling and that pressure is. But basketball is something that I've known my whole life, and academics now, and realizing that this is opportunity that comes once in a lifetime, and really trying to have the best of both worlds, and trying to get the best out of everything that's in front of me. And given the circumstances with COVID-19, you have a lot of free time and a lot of time that you're either going to use wisely or you're going to use it, poorly. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely thinking about Masters. I'm trying to climb that, that mountain. So it really means a lot to me.
Something tells me you're going to climb it. Hey, Coach, we got about a minute and a half left. You mentioned that Dimitrije was like a big brother. What did you mean by that exactly?
Yeah, he just, I guess it's kind of the same thing he talked about with KJ. KJ welcomed him in. I think that's when you have a real program. The older guys welcome the new guys. And Dimitrije has done that. He obviously had to get comfortable himself, and certainly is. And, you began to see it, or we began to see it last year at times. And it's really he's taken it to a whole new level, here this year. Rico, obviously, he was familiar with, from East Carolina. So that was a natural connection there. But Mateo and Shimon, I mean, he's kind of taken those two guys under his wing. And they aren't the only ones. He's a willing teammate. He's a guy that, the younger guys can go to with questions. He knows how things are done and supposed to be done within the program. And he takes ownership in that and a responsibility that, hey, I want to be there for my teammates. And that's a really cool thing. That's what we want all of our guys to do.
Yeah, it sounds good. Guys, thank you so much. Dimitrije Spasojevic, part of the academic, the All-America East Conference academic team. Congratulations on that. We'll see you Saturday when you take on UMass Lowell.
Thanks so much.
Okay. And we'll take a time out here, step aside. When we return, a very, very special guest will join us as we remember a great upset in college basketball history. And welcome back to the show. Gary Stein, along with UMBC head coach Ryan Odom. And while all UMBC fans are looking ahead, no doubt, to this week's semifinal against UMass Lowell, it's always pleasant to think back on a fond memory. And joining us now to help us do just that is a man who I'm proud to call a friend. For 32 years, he was an award-winning sports columnist and a features writer at the Baltimore Sun. He gave that up and decided to become a New York Times bestselling author. How about that? And now, as far as I'm concerned, he's topped it all, writing the story of how tiny little, nobody ever heard of them, UMBC, literally shocked the sports world and busted your bracket on March 16th of 2018. You Must Be Cinderella is the name of the book. It's now available for pre-order on Amazon, bn.com, and other online booksellers. Kevin Cowherd is the author. He joins us. Kevin, there's no one better to have written this book, I think, than you. Thanks for doing it.
Oh, absolutely, Gary. Thanks for having me on, and thanks to Ryan and everybody at UMBC for all the help they gave me. It was a wonderful project. I loved every minute of it.
Give us the backstory, Kevin. What motivated you? How did you start the process churning in your mind to get this done?
Well, it started, Gary, the night of the game. I watched the game transfixed like millions of other people. Such a wonderful game, such a compelling saga. I'm a sucker for underdog stories, and to me, this was one of the best underdog stories of my lifetime. Here's as you said, a basketball team from a relatively unknown school in Catonsville, Maryland, a 16 seed going up against a 1 seed against mighty Virginia, and the top overall seed. And UMBC doesn't just beat the Cavaliers; they destroy them. They pound them. They win by 20 going away. So they were 20.5-point underdogs, the first 16 seed ever to knock off a 1. And I knew that was a story. They made it look easy. 16 seeds were 0-135, you'll recall, against number 1 seeds. So, I wanted to write about the game, but I also wanted to write about how the game affected the school. For one glorious weekend, as you guys remember, all eyes were on UMBC. It was the #1 story. You couldn't turn on Sports Center. You couldn't go on a website. You couldn't pick up a newspaper without hearing the story of UMBC. So I wanted to know how that affected the school. I wanted to know how it affected Ryan and his coaching staff. I wanted to know how it affected the players, the school, the administrators. That was my whole intent, to make it a complete book, not just a book about the game.
So Ryan, pick up the story. How did it affect the school and you? And what was your reaction when Kevin approached wanting to write the story?
Yeah, I think the first connection might have been with Steve, and then also with Greg Simmons and some folks on campus, I believe, Lisa Oxgen as well. And obviously, anytime you hear someone talk about a book about something that you were involved with, is you're kind of taken back. You really want to write about that, about us, and the more we thought about it, and obviously, like you said, Gary, there's no better person to write this story, all right, than Kevin. And I can remember our first meeting, feeling at home with him, and knowing that he was going to tell it, the way the story should be told, and truthfully and fun at the same time.
Kevin, I'm going to assume that when you went to your publisher and told him the idea, there was no pushback at all, right? I mean, it is the greatest sports story of our lifetime, right?
Well, it was to me. I found a publisher who was very enthusiastic about it, Gary. So there were no problems on that end. As I said, it was just such a compelling underdog story, but also there were so many other side stories involved in this. Yeah. The more I researched, the more I reported. You had a kid like Jairus Lyles, right, who was riding the bench at VCU with Shaka Smart, ends up at the UMBC as he becomes a superstar. You had a tiny little, scrawny little point guard from Puerto Rico, KJ Mora, who ends up at the end of his career as the America East Defensive Player of the Year. So all these sub-stories were so wonderful, I knew it would be a great book.
Was there anything, and I'm sure the answer is going to be yes, like what surprised you? What would we read in the book that we would say, I didn't know that, or I'm surprised by that?
I can tell you the first thing that surprised me, the thing that surprised me the most, was the confidence that UMBC coaches and players had going into that Virginia game. From everyone down, from Ryan Odom, from Nate Dixon, from Bryce Crawford, from Eric Skeeters, from all the players, everyone said the same thing, how confident they were going into that game. Didn't mean they thought they were just going to roll the ball out there and win, but they were confident. They knew that if they played up to their capabilities, they were going to win that game, or they had a chance to win the game. They had the opportunity. So I would say that was the most surprising thing, because, again, from Ryan on down, everyone said the same thing.
Ryan, let me ask you about that, because it sounds counterintuitive. Kevin said that the record, and he's right, that the record of a 16 versus 1 was 0 and 135. Think about that for a minute, and I know you have, right? So it sounds almost counterintuitive for you guys to go in there with confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we've always tried to impress upon our players, is that you should have no fear. All right, the game has to be won in between the lines. It's not going to be won with stats outside the lines. And we were just coming off of a game where, in the championship against Vermont, we were 0 and 23. Our school was 0 and 23 recently in recent history against Vermont. And we overcame those odds. And so, why would we not think that we could do something similar in the next round, in the NCAA tournament? Obviously, we knew what we were facing. We did not have our heads in the sand in terms of, Virginia's abilities. We knew that they were the #1 team, in terms of #1 overall seed, but they were the most balanced team in all of college basketball on both sides of the ball. but we also knew that we had a team that, could compete against teams of that caliber. From earlier in the season, we played a really good Arizona team who made the NCAA tournament and had the number one pick in the draft. We played, Maryland to a pretty close game in College Park. It was really good that year. And then also we played SMU. We were up 13 in the last few minutes against a really good SMU team as well. And so we felt like it wasn't the first time we'd ever seen that level of talent. And we had some guys on our team that were just not afraid. Now, did we think that would translate into a 20-point win? Of course not. We were hoping to be able to stay in the game, much like the first half played out. And then you just take your chances from there. I think that was the expectation, going in.
But Ryan, if I could ask you real quick, as the second half began to unfold and Arkel Lamar hits a three and Jordan Grant hits a three and, Jarris Lyles makes another twisting jumper and the lead goes from 4 to 8 to 12 to 16 to 20. Can you just take us through in your mind for a minute of what you were thinking?
Yeah, I think when you're in those situations, like we're so used to it as coaches, we're just coaching the game. You're not worried about who the opponent is or what's happened or the stakes, at that particular time. You're focused on the task at hand, and that's trying to win the game. And what do we need to do, all right, to continue to increase this lead or at the very least maintain it and be able to outlast them at the end? And we knew that they were going to make a run at some point, as the lead began to swell, in the middle parts of that second half. And so the job for us, what I did not want was our guys to get tentative. And we had been in some of those similar situations before. We had big leads, other teams comes back a little bit, and then we're able to finish it, at the end previously and earlier in the season. So I felt like we could do it. It was an unusual position, obviously, for them. And we knew that they would get extremely aggressive. And so my message to the guys was play forward. We got to attack, take it when it's there, continue to score if they're going to give you those opportunities. And that's really kind of how it played out. And really didn't know it was over until, that last time out, to be honest, or that shot clock violation.
Yeah.
And then just kind of a wave of emotions came upon me at that point.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, if I could end up with you, got a couple minutes. You are a New York Times bestselling author. You worked for the Baltimore Sun for 32 years. I read you, all the time, obviously. And you've written a plethora of books. Can you tell me where this one ranks in terms of all that, in terms of the experience of researching it and getting it out?
Well, I can tell you this, I don't know how to rank it, Gary, but I can tell you this, the cooperation that I had from everybody, from Ryan, from the players, from the school, was just wonderful. This was one of the more enjoyable projects I've ever had. Everybody was so upfront. Everybody was so honest with their emotions. I talked about some of the side stories in this, and one of the side stories in this was courtesy of Ryan and Lucia Odom, who told me about their son, Connor, and his OCD problems. And they were so open and honest and courageous about it. And so was Connor, who I talked to about it, too. So I had such great cooperation. I don't know how it ranks with my other books, Gary, but it was such an enjoyable project. I'd do something like this again in a heartbeat. It was just wonderful.
Well, hold on to your hat, Kevin, because who knows?
Yeah,
it's March
exactly.
Madness,
Exactly. I'm praying. Got my fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Well, the book is called You Must Be Cinderella. The author, Kevin Cowherd, is our guest. It's available now for pre-order on Amazon, BN.com, and other line booksellers. And Kevin, I understand that Joe Sherburne already has a copy, and you and he have tweeted back and forth, if I'm not mistaken.
We have. He likes the book. He says it's eerily accurate. I said, it's supposed to be eerily accurate.
Spoken in true Joe Sherburne fashion.
Oh, it
absolutely.
Was.
Kevin, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
Right. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for coming on.
That is Kevin Cowherd.
Absolutely.
Ryan and I will be back to discuss UMass Lowell right after this. our final segment here on the UMBC Ryan Odom Basketball Report. And Coach, obviously, the next big test for you is the conference tournament, the semifinal on Saturday, 2 o'clock at the Event Center. It's UMass Lowell. This is new territory for them, Coach, as they take on UMBC in the semifinal. Ironically, you didn't play them this year. COVID delayed, COVID postponed, etc. Tell us a little bit about them and how you think they got here at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it is ironic because I think, as you'll see in both semifinal games, none of the teams have played one another at this point. Vermont hasn't played Hartford either, and so it is unique. It's a unique season. You wait all the way to the semifinals of the conference tournament to finally lace it up against one another. But we've got a ton of respect for UMass Lowell. Coach Duquette does a great job. They got off to a solid start this season. Playing in that bubble. Beat a really good San Francisco team, played Ohio State tight. I think they were down 4 points with, 3 minutes to go in the game or something like that. And so, they've got, what probably is the best offensive player in the league and Obadiah Noel, who's played a ton of minutes since his freshman year and been a really dynamite player for them. He's the leader of their team, of course. And they were forced to play without him, towards the tail end of the season. He wasn't available due to injury. And it was really neat to see the rest of their team step up and become a cohesive unit there. And then now they've entered him back into the fold, and they're clearly better now because of that time away and what they were able to do, give those guys some more confidence, going in that they could do it, if he was in foul trouble or out or whatever. But they're a really good offensive team. They pass the ball extremely well. They put a lot of pressure on the defense. They get fouled more than any team in our conference. We foul the least of any team in our conference. And so I think that stat right there is probably going to be an important one, as we approach it and as we get into it. But the game will tell us what we need to do as we begin to play it, and in terms of adjustments and how we have to adjust to be able to be successful. But we know we're in for a big time battle, for a chance to go to the championship.
And so what's the message from you to your team as you await Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, don't think about the NCAA tournament. I mean, think about the things and focus on the things that lead to winning, and, the rest to hopefully take care of itself. We feel like we've got a good basketball team here. We've got solid health at this point, and, guys that, have been able to work together over the last, since that Vermont game, week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever it's going to end up being. I feel like we've gotten better, over that time. And, Saturday will be an opportunity for us to showcase that.
Coach, I'll throw one number out at you. Last year, injury-wise, your players missed 83 games collectively. This year, your starters have missed 6 games collectively. That is quite a difference between last year and this year.
No, it really is. I mean, that's a huge thing, being available for your team and being healthy for your team as coaches put the rosters together and begin to figure things out. That's a big part of it. The luck that you have to be able to get through a season, especially this season with COVID going on, with all the stops and starts and things that have happened, a real challenge.
Coach, you take care of that basketball team. We'll see you Saturday at 2 o'clock.
All righty. Thanks, Gary.
That's Ryan Odom, head basketball coach at UMBC. Thanks to everybody involved, and we'll see you next week right here on the UMBC Ryan Odom Basketball Report.